In this video I'm going to show you how to do this mini picot stitch, which is a really lovely way to trim various things such as tops. In this case, this is a stitch that I've designed to go on the arm and neck edge of this vest top that I've designed for the Journals of Scottish Yarns issue 3, and you can find the link for that in the captions of this video. So before you actually make this picot stitch trim, you need to have a base row of just plain single crochets or UK doubles. And this little picot trim is a 2-stitch pattern repeat. So we're going to start off with a chain 1, and throughout all the stitch sequence, all the stitches we're making, we are only going to be working in the back loop of the single crochets or UK doubles from the previous round. So we've done a chain 1, and into the back loop only we're going to slip stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch into the back loop of the next stitch, and then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch back into the exact same back loop of the stitch that we put the slip stitch in just before we did the chain 1. Next it's slip stitch into the back loop of the next stitch, and then slip stitch into the back loop of the next stitch, chain 1, slip stitch into the back loop of the same stitch, slip stitch into the back loop of the next stitch, into the back loop of the next stitch. You're going to slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch, slip stitch into the back loop of the next stitch, into the back loop of the next stitch. You're going to slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch. So pretty straightforward. I think you'll agree. It's basically a slip stitch into the back loop, into the back loop of the next stitch, slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch. So it's a 2-stitch sequence, and you just keep repeating that all the way round. And don't worry too much about stitch count, because on this one, in this particular design, I'm actually started at the underarm. So when I come back round to finish off, if I don't happen to have enough stitches left for the full 2-stitch repeat, let's say I come to the last bit and I've only got let's say 3 stitches, then I would just not make the last picot, because no one's really going to notice. It's right where the seam for the under the arm is. So if you're just putting this onto a different item, a different garment, and you don't want to spend time counting stitches, you just start the round at a spot where, you know, it's less noticeable if you happen to have an odd number of stitches and you need to just modify the stitch pattern slightly. So that's it basically. I'm just going to keep going round. I'll show you what to do how to fasten off when you get back to the beginning. I'll carry on now, and I will meet you back in a minute when I'm ready to fasten off this round. So I'm just coming to the end of this round, almost back to the beginning. I'm not going to cut the yarn. And I'm going to do an invisible bind off, or a sewn bind off. So I'm going to pull this live loop completely out. I'm going to get my needle, and I'm going to work into, so you skip a stitch for this and you work into the next stitch in the same direction as your hook would go, front to back. You've made a front loop of a stitch, turn the work over, And that exact point from the last stitch you made where you pulled the live loop out, you're going to go down through there and pop out on the wrong side. So what you've made there is just like a mock stitch. And then I'm just going to secure that. I'm actually going to secure it in the row below, in the back of these legs of the single crochet row I made. It's quite difficult to sew anything into that slip stitch border. I'm going to catch a leg, I'm going to work back the other way for a couple of stitches, and that is enough to secure that, and then fasten off. So that's it. I've just put this rather attractive little mini picot border around the armhole of this vest top.